usually my sponsor makes me cry before I go talk, and I'll probably be crying. My name is Caron, and I'm an alcoholic.
Hey, Caron.
Sobriety date is June 29, 1997. Spirit Winds of Lawton, Oklahoma is my home group. You know, a lot of non-natives, they always have birthday celebrations when they turn 10, 15, 20, 25 years. I thought, man, that'd be cool to have one, but I thought maybe that was my ego. But this past June, on our birthday date at our home group, I got to celebrate my birthday, and that was so awesome. I'm Comanche. My father's full-blood Comanche. He's from Apache, Oklahoma. My mother's from a small tribe in northern Oklahoma called Oto, Missouri. Now, the only way that tribes like that mix is, you know where they met. They went to high school. I was born in Fort Huachuca, Arizona. Father was in the Army for 23 years. He was a Chief Warrant Officer 4. So he had a couple of tours in Korea and 2 tours in West Germany. I got to go see West Germany, and I'm an Army brat, and I love it. I love being loyal to the red, white, and blue. I took my first drink when I was 4. I don't know, I was just a little chubby girl, and everybody used to just bump me on their knee. But my father used to give me sips of his beer and his wine. And a little after I turned 6, we moved back to the States. My folks had built a home in Lawton. And I didn't know my people like you all. Y'all are blessed. You have a lot of tradition. And I'm an urban girl. You know, my favorite, what I wanted to be when I was young was just a stoic Comanche woman, a mean Comanche woman that my long hair and just, stoic. And everybody goes, you're not stoic, you just look mean, or you just look like you're acting high. But I was already wearing the Comanche shirts when I was young, and it's just one of those things. The part that I didn't tell you about our flag was the blue means loyalty, and the yellow means happiness, or the sunlight. I would like to think, to me, in AA terms, is the sunlight of the spirit. But, so I'm the youngest of 8, and every time my father came home, I had a couple more sisters, brothers, and one day, we didn't realize it till maybe like 15 years ago, me and all my siblings were born at forts. We never realized that. How can you forget that? So that was something. We were really proud of our father. My story's here. I never know what's going to come out of my mouth, so just bear with me. So I start school in Lawton, Oklahoma, and I made good grades. My folks were both untreated alcoholics. And like most of y'all, some of y'all, I grew up in a family where drinking, fighting, I saw that and heard it every day. A certain time, and it would always end up, everybody's wake you up. We're going to get a divorce. Who do you want to live with? That kind of stuff. And 3 of them, we lost one. He was a year and a half, but there was 7 of us. So they'd line up 3 of them. They'd say, Mom, and 3 of them would say, Dad. And they'd say, baby, who do you want to live with? And I'd say, I want to live with both of y'all. Everybody would hug, and we'd go to sleep. The insanity of this is we did it every day. So I heard a lot of generational trauma in here, and that is part of it. So I'm working on mine. I made good grades because I'm a child of an alcoholic. And I think probably a lot of you have too. I was in school, never had to bring books home, made good grades. And believe it or not, my service work started there. I was like the person they voted to go to the student council government. I was in the Indian club, the English club, the science club, you name the club. I didn't get to the real clubs till I was 16. But, my father is from two bands, and it's the Root Eaters and the Antelope Eaters. One time I was sharing and nobody noticed. I said I was from the Anteater band. And I'm thinking afterwards, I thought, I wonder what they thought about us. God, they eat anteaters. My mother, they have clans, and she was from the Bear Clan. So, my father said, my mother claims he took her captive, right? Comanche's taking her captive. It's like we took captive of all y'all that we could try to. But my dad said we were going to follow the Bear Clan. So that's pretty much my totem, my spirituality symbol. And I got to name Geronimo. That's his mother's maiden name. And I blame him. I said, I couldn't name you Geronimo because they wanted me to marry your dad. But he's a good son. Okay, so I go through high school. I'm still drinking. When we moved back to Oklahoma, I found my dad's liquor cabinet. And guess what I found? Those little bitty cups. I was taking shots of his liquor then. He thought if he bought the rankest cigarettes and liquor or beer that we wouldn't want it. I loved Falstaff. And I smoked Pall Mall non-filters. You just have to spit those seeds out. But I grew up, and believe it or not, my folks, it was crazy. Again, I just scooted on through school, made good grades, made honor roll. I graduated in 1977, and somewhere around early 70s, my folks quit drinking. They just did it by white knuckle. They just quit. And they joined the Mormon church. We're out here, me and all my sisters and brothers, we're alcoholics. Some of them were getting into the other stuff. And they just quit. And they start doing God's work. And so we couldn't stop. I got me a car when the Kiowas and the Comanches and the Apaches got their first per cap. And so I had to ride, so they all had to pitch in and buy me a quart, and I would take them wherever they wanted. So the embarrassing part of it was I was already a blackout drinker when I was in high school. So most of the time I don't remember what we did or where we went, and I was driving. So they would always hide me at like ball games, where there's the slopes where you could sit down on the grass. They sat behind me because I was passed out, That's the part I was thinking about. In the big book, it talks about, my mind was always around alcohol. And I didn't realize it. So when I got my first DUI when I was just graduated. It was 1977. And I had gone to this Indian bar in Lawton called the Attic. I already knew my drinking was so bad that I had to go out late, like 9:30, 10, and I would catch up to them in no time. So, they start turning lights out 1:30 to 2, and there was these 6 guys from Fort Sill Indian School. They went AWOL, and they had no money, and they couldn't go back because they couldn't get back in. And I didn't have no money, but I had gas. So they said, could we go with you? And I'm like, okay. And they said, well, we don't have no money. I said, well, I got gas. And I said, I know where we could find some beer. So we went to Mountain Scott. Now, our Mountain Scott is not like y'all's mountains. It's only like a mile up. But it winds around. And my father always says, being an ex-Army man, said, don't you go up on Mount Scott, because there's nothing but GIs up there, and you don't need to be around them. So I took those guys, and we went up there, we made friends, and they'd say, go get y'all something to drink, and get y'all one too. Okay. So we all took turns, and we would take like a bunch of theirs, put it in our car, and when we thought we had enough, I said, y'all go to the restroom one by one, and then I'll come and then we'll go. Well, it's almost 4 o'clock in the morning, and I get in the car, and I thought, this is that alcoholic logic. I'm going to turn the lights out so they won't see me. They won't see us. I drove down the mountain drunk. Those guys were scared. Now, from the mountain to the highway was about a good 10 miles. I could have turned my lights on, but I didn't. We still drove to the interstate with no lights on, and then from the interstate to Lawton with no lights on. A cop started chasing me right when we started getting into Lawton, and I had like a Medea car. It was real long. And those windows in the back were long. So when they were chasing me, but I had to turn the corners. And every time I turned the corners, one of those guys was jumping out. So one time I stopped. I was the only one in the car. I got to make 2 amends from those guys. The other had passed. And we just lost the last one like last year from COVID. But at least I made 1 amends. And he just said, man, we thought you were crazy. Crazy, mean Comanche woman, yeah. But after that, I was going to go to college, but this man had asked me to help him drive to Sisseton. He was going to MC. He said, I'll give you this belt. And it was a beautiful turquoise belt. And so I asked my folks, I said, can I help him drive? He's going to give me this belt. I said, no. I said, but it's cut bead. No, if you go, you take everything you got. So when he came to get me, I went out with, a little bag and some clothes. I said, I'll be right back. I come back with a big suitcase and another suitcase. And he goes, are you leaving? I said, just start the car and get it ready. I'll be right back. And I went and got the last things, and I said, go, and we took off. That was husband 1. What I like to tell people is, us natives, we don't know how to date. We go to ball games, powwows, 49s. Now we're probably doing conferences and AA rallies, but lost my thought there. I said 49s and I lost my thought. So anyway, I go and went, and that marriage didn't last long, but I had DeRoy. And then I started working, and I worked since I was 14 years old. That's one thing my father did instill in me. You always have to have a second backup for your income in case your husband leaves you. So I did that. My mother used to say, don't smoke in public, don't cuss, and no tattoos. I quit cussing after I got sober. They said it's part of cleaning up. Okay, so I stayed alone and divorced for a while, and I have this crazy sister. She's still crazy. And she says, I'm going to take you to a bar so you can meet an Indian man. Okay, so I learned the right terminology from Patty last night, or one of the girls. I can't remember who it was. I wanted to find a Lakota with long hair. handsome cowboy. And then I thought, well, I want to find a First Nations Cree. I learned that yesterday. With pretty blue eyes or gray eyes and long hair, cowboy. I said, or I want to find a rich Osage from Oklahoma cowboy with a lot of money. So she takes me on a Wednesday morning to Oklahoma City. Now, I don't know if y'all know Oklahoma City, but she took me to the Crazy Horse Bar. And it's going to be your local Indian bar and everywhere y'all live. You know, it's crazy. It's crazy. And we go in there, just me and her, and we get in there at 11:30 Wednesday morning, and there's two guys in there. They're playing pool. They said, would you like to play pool with us? We're sure. He goes, what tribe are y'all? And I said, we're Comanche. What tribe are y'all? He said, we're Comanche. Oh. So we go on a couple more minutes. He goes, where y'all from? I said, we're from Lawton. I said, where y'all from? And one said, Cache, which is like 12 miles from Lawton. And the other one said, Indiahoma, which is like 5 miles from Cache. You know, I go all the way to meet my dream Indian man for the rest of my life, and I meet a Comanche less than 20 miles away. But this is the irony of it all. My sister says, pick one. I didn't pick no cowboy. He wasn't rich. And that was my husband number 2. Now, I always said that I never wanted to get married because I thought all marriages were like my folks. I said when I was young, I said, I want to have 12 kids from different dads. Until someone finally told me what I was saying. I was like, so that second marriage was very toxic. And it was like, you know how when we're drinking, we start sobering up. We're like, I don't want to be like my mom, and I hope I never become my dad. I became them both. That mean Comanche woman, remember that. So, I lost my place again. Second one. The Indiahoma one. Yeah, see, I'm glad they're here. That's what they're here for. They help me. I was going around telling everybody I was 73. I'm only 63. My job's getting my good right brain. But I never went on a date till I was 36. And my sister-in-law, my son's auntie, fixed me up with this cute Comanche cowboy. And he wanted me to drink with him. And I said, I just can't. Because I turn into a mean woman when I get drunk. And he goes, oh, come on, Caron, one beer won't hurt you. I said, you don't understand. You know, I didn't always go to jail when I drank, but every time I was in jail, I had drank. We've heard that before. So I waited a month and I gave in. Now, we were the best drinking buddies, but we couldn't make it as a couple. It changed. When you drink with someone, it changes. And then we became toxic. So he kept saying, gosh, you're okay if you didn't drink. You know, I'm like, well, you wanted me to drink with you. I told you. So he just said, come get your things out of my house. I'm leaving on a trip. He had already had another woman. So I was hurt. I was angry. So what I do? The weekend he left, my 2 best friends' parents were going to marry. And I went to the wedding that morning and I went home. When they stayed drinking all day. Now, I couldn't do that or I'd have been passed out probably by noon. So I stayed home. I went out almost at 11 o'clock that night. Guess what? I caught up to them in 40 minutes. They said, bring your clothes, you're going to stay here. I said, okay. When I got there, there was like 30 people in that room. I'm not staying in there. So I thought, well, this is a good time for me to go get my stuff from that house. Alkalogic thinking. So I go out there and I get all my stuff, and this man had this exotic beer collection all the way around his kitchen. I was so mad, I was so angry, I was so hurt. I drank every one of those. Purple beers, red beers, orange beers, brown beers, all sorts of crazy labels for Halloween and Christmas. I lived 6 miles from him. I got an APC about 1.5 miles from my house. Halfway in the car, halfway on the cement, my keys are in the ignition. So I go to jail. When I wake up, I was handcuffed to an undersheriff at our county hospital. They're taking my BAC. It was 3.8. I'm grateful there was no, what do they call those now? Aggravated DUIs. And jailbirds too, and mugshots. Because I was almost a frequent flyer. But that's why I had such a high alcohol content, the BAC. So after they do that, then they take me, put me in jail. And I'm sitting there and I do the last drunkard's prayer, which we call a foxhole prayer, on the cot. You know, say, oh God, please get me out of jail. I promise. I'll quit drinking. I'll go to treatment. I'll go to counseling. I'll even go to AA. And I said, amen. And I sat down on the side of the cot. And I was sitting there, and pretty soon you could hear people walking in, and they go, yellowfish, man on deck, or something, whatever they say when the man comes on. He says, Miss Yellowfish, your sister hired me to, and get this is my crazy sister. She hired me to bail you out on some stipulations. I said, what are they? He said that you go to treatment, and you go to counseling, and you go to AA. That was the first spiritual experience I've ever experienced, and my last foxhole prayer. So I get out, and I said, man, I had to pay my sister back, so the next time I got my income tax refund, I paid her back. And she gave me some of her books. And I called, looked on the telephone book, and went to the first AA group and called there. And this little sweet voice says, Lawton Original Group, this is Mary, how can I help you? And I said, what dates and what times are your meetings? And she told me. I said, okay, thank you. In the meantime, I signed up for treatment. And treatment then for me, well, I could keep my job before I was about to lose it and still go to work. So I managed to go to night treatment, and my treatment counselor looked like Sam Elliott. So I went every day. My counselor was a cowboy. And I was early. My service sponsor was always getting mad at me. Caron, if you got a commitment, you need to be there 30 minutes early. Man, I was 30 minutes early, yeah. He did this one. We had about 27 people in treatment beginning. And he did this one project with us, where you stand there, you put an X for every divorced member of your family, if they smoke, if they drink, if they have legal problems, if they work, if, all of that. And I never realized there was a lot of people that were adopted or fostered in our program. And now I understand why. So man, I was going to town on that blackboard. And when I turned around, they were all done, and theirs were little bitty presentations like this, and mine was a big old chalkboard full. And I looked at Sam Elliott, and he was crying. He said, "You're full of trauma." Yeah. What I didn't tell y'all was my mother went to boarding school from kindergarten to 12th grade. I couldn't believe that. Kindergarten. She went to Pawnee University. They call it Pawnee U. And my dad went to regular public school. Then after she graduated from there, she went to the high school, which was Chilocco. And then from there, that's when they go to Haskell. Now, y'all know this. So when your folks go to Haskell and they have babies, what do they call them?
Haskell Rascals.
Haskell Rascals. So I was the little rascal. And we see the weirdest combinations of tribes, and a lot of that is why, because they all end up at Haskell. But after that, my counselor, Sam, said, don't go, you got to make 3-4 meetings a week, but whatever you do, don't go to this group right here. And I said, why? He said, because those people are crazy. That was my first home group. It was crazy. We broke every tradition there was. That's how I learned them. It was so bad, they called the delegate and the alt delegate down. Stephanie can vouch for that. I know she's here somewhere. It was so bad, and they had to tell us, you guys are so busy arguing, who's carrying the message? So, we were breaking the traditions. They took us to different groups, female groups, my sponsor and I, and about 3 more of my sponsee sisters. And after that, I just start making my groups and my AA meetings. And you know how you think nobody knows what you're doing? My neighbor came over and says, "Hey, will you buy me some milk on your way back from treatment?" My whole area knew I was going to treatment. But I never realized when I came home from drinking, I was halfway in the car and halfway on the ground. Him and his little brother had to pick me up. And I did like everybody else. I go see if there was any body parts or anything in front of the car, That's a scary thought. I was the one always driving everybody, but I would never make it home. Then I got bad. I would come home with no shoes and no jewelry, so I had to not wear jewelry. I would hide money, put them in books, because I knew I'd come back broke, but I never could remember where I hid it. I found a $50 bill about maybe a year and a half ago in one of my books. That's just crazy thinking we do. And I remember when I was out there trying to go buy something to drink, you know how we won't go to the same place? I would go to different drive-thrus so they didn't think I was drinking. Man, like I said, I'm just grateful for that there isn't no jailbirds and all that, because, I told you about my first DUI. My second DUI happened in the Indian capital of the nation, Oklahoma, Anadarko. Anybody know where that's at? And they put everything in the newspaper, and it's embarrassing. I was in there playing cards with a prostitute, a lady who knifed her husband, and just a lady for petty theft. And then I think I was only like a 3, what's about 2.1 or 2. And that jailer was like, "What'd you drink, Kool-Aid?" They were teasing me. So my dad came and bailed me out, and he's like, you get the whole thing. And I said, "Man, I was having a good card game. And his hand came backward like that. And my mom was going, shh. I still didn't quit. My third DUI happened. I lost my mother in January. And I lost my father that December the same year. And I was nuts. My mother being a bear clan, I was taught that bears are born in the winter and they die in the winter. So y'all don't know how much I look forward to spring. It's important for me. It's there. I know it's there. So we get to AA. I did the drive-bys. I went to go to one where there was hardly any cars. And I said, okay, I need to find one there's nobody there. So I found one, and it was at the one I wanted to go to, that crazy one. And they had a schedule. They were all day long. So I said, okay, I'm going to go on to Wednesday because they're going to all be in church. So I go there, and there's only like 5 cars out in the parking lot. And I walk in there, there's like 45 people in there. Well, they had a lot of people coming from the treatment centers, from the halfway houses. They were packed. And so I sat right down. There was an empty seat right by the front door, and I could sit there and watch the time. And the guy that was chairing it, I did not know was my great-great-grand sponsor. And the lady who said, hi, I'm Mary, she was my sponsor, but I did not know that. So I sat there, and he would call on someone to talk. I said, I'm good. They're not going to call on me because they don't know me. And he says, so-and-so, call on that little Indian lady sitting by the door. And as soon as I said, hi, I'm Caron, and I had to say it, I'm an alcoholic, I started crying. And I cried for 18 months. Never thought I was alcoholic, but I knew I was. So she came right after the meeting. She said, poor thing, you're in so much pain. We're going to have to get you in the 4-step soon. Now, after Peggy's share yesterday, I'm afraid to say the 4-step was my favorite step. It really was. I was full of pain. She was a smart sponsor. At first, I just had her as a, what are those sponsors? No, phantom sponsor. You know, so you could say, I have a sponsor that does this and that. Everybody wants to say, I got a sponsor that told me this. She was my phantom sponsor. And she was a big book thumper. I would go to the big book meetings, but she'd make me stay and go to her little meeting and go through the big book some more. So she had me making all these lists. Who am I afraid of? Who am I mad at? What am I grateful for? Who do I owe amends to? And I had all these lists. So when it came time for me to do that 4-step, I had everything there. And I would go right after work, get me a big pop. I'm a popaholic. And I'd go straight there, but I ran into her. She goes, oh, how's that 4-step coming? It's coming. Saw her at Walmart. How's your homework? It's going good. You know, I went to a garage sale 30 miles away, and I saw her. And she didn't have to say it. I said, okay, I'll do that 4-step. So we meet at her apartment. Come in. She says, I'll be right there. Go ahead, start reading. So I was in there reading by myself and crying as I was reading. She come in there, and she had this big bowl of popcorn. So I was sitting there reading, and she is eating and laughing. And I'm like, Mary, I'm in pain here. You're laughing. I'm crying. This hurts. She said, Caron, you haven't done anything the rest of us haven't. What makes you different? And that was the first time I realized I was no different. I wasn't unique. I felt a part of then. She was in service work. That's where I got it from, what Christy was talking about. And they tricked me. Caron, there's a meeting after the meeting. We need your help. Okay. And I'd always come out with some kind of service position. And there was like 7 of us that did the service in our home group, and we just had to rotate it for the spirit of rotation. And, you get to learn how to do all that stuff. I never realized who bought the old paper, who bought the coffee, who had to wash the cups and the ashtrays. Now, I did a lot of boo-boos in AA. When I chaired this one time, I said, are there any newcomers? And this guy said, I am. I said, congratulations. And everybody looked at me like, Caron. I said, glad you're here. Another time I did one, I said, y'all, this place is nasty. We need to clean it up, and then we'll have a quick meeting. And they go, okay. So they were sweeping and mopping and washing cups and ashtrays. And I said, okay, come on, let's circle up and let's have a meeting real quick. I said, hey, I didn't even ask if there's any newcomers. I said, are there any newcomers? And this guy raised his hand. And we had that newcomer sweeping and mopping, but he kept coming back. I used to go to the gym in the morning, and he was a weatherman on our local TV. He'd be banging on that window, making crazy faces at me, and I would just get shamed. But he was a lot of fun. What that home group taught me was just being part of. They did a lot of activities. They even got me to dress up for a Halloween party one time, and I came in as a rodeo clown. I had these bull ears on this, face was white. No one knew who I was. My sponsor got married to another guy in the program, and I wouldn't suggest that. And so they had their real wedding at her house, and she talked me into wearing a dress and doing an updo with my hair. And then they went to the AA group just to do a mock ceremony for everybody else. So I walk in there, and one of my sponsees said, hello, I'm so-and-so, come in. And she goes, what's your name? I said, it's me, your sponsor, Caron. And nobody knew who I was because I was all duded up. So, we had parties at the lake. We did a lot of things, and that's what AA fellowship is about. And they tell us to create the fellowship that you crave. And, you heard us this whole weekend. We have fun. We're not a glum lot. But we go to AA. We go to AA conferences, AA rallies, AA meetings. I got involved in the Third Legacy work, being a GSR at the home group level, and GSR, plus like the secretary. Oh, I did another boo-boo in secretary. The list they give you in AA are just a call list to call if you're going to feel like drinking. And everybody puts it as a placement of your sobriety. So they want to keep their name on there even if they relapsed. But I was the secretary. They said, Caron, if anybody relapses, you take their name off. So I did that, and they would get mad at me. They'd cuss at me. Man, that was rough. But after that, we went to start doing some district work. And I did the DCM, the alt DCM, and I did some of the chairs there. And we got involved with some Native conferences there. They're dead now. It was a Red Road to Freedom group. They used to come to Red Road. Some of you knew the ladies. And Trail of Hope just died this past year. They just buried Joe C. the other day. So, we started one ourselves. It's called All Nations. Those were the flyers that were out there on the side. And it's a nice little state lodge. And it's really neat. If you guys ever want to go travel somewhere, come over. We feed you. We give you lots of coffee. And we have lots and lots of raffles. The way I look at it, I was sharing this with someone yesterday. We go to meetings and they might be selling chances to about 1,050 people on maybe 3 things. So we have all kinds of raffles. So most of you will walk out with something. That's what I'd like to see, people happy. Hey, they fed me, I got coffee, I won something. And that makes you feel good. Plus you see deer all over. And that's pretty, they just come up to you. But that's what I've been doing. Service work don't keep me sober, but it kept me busy, kept me part of, and I've met some of the greatest people so far. I go to Red Road every May, and I've come to this one 3 times when it was in Santa Fe and 1 time out here at Riviera. We spent our money those first couple nights, and there was a McDonald's across the street. We had to send Kim and one of the other girls who went with us over to get us burgers on that value meal to last us. But that was a lot of fun. I mean, we have a lot of fun together. And we're just there being helping each other if we're down. And it's a neat thing, helping others. Because someone helped me. Now I'm going to get to the part, let's see the steps. First step, I know I'm an alcoholic and my life is unmanageable. 2, there's a God and I'm not it, and I'm so grateful. I'm nothing without him. The God of my understanding just knows me, and I've got that God conscience now. I could get that little nudge in the gut that helps me. The third step is just allowing God to be part of my life and not trying to be controlling, because I can be controlling, Chris. And he said he was going to put my name on his 4-step for the next 10 years. That night of the flag ceremony, they're going, Chris, do this, Chris, do that, carry this, carry that. We had fun. Now, the 4-step, I told you, that was a fun step because I was so scared of it, like everybody is, but she had me do it in such an easy way that I did it quick as I could to get out of that pain. And I wrote everything down, and I had those big old computer sheets, like 17.5 by 24, and they were mainly my husbands and my mates and my snags. And I kept all my treatment work so I could see how far I've grown, how far I've come along. Been doing a lot of public speaking. I'm not good at regular sponsee work. I do good service sponsee work. And I keep in touch with my sponsor. I set some meetings with her. She's had about 4 or 5 back surgeries, so she was limited. But my service sponsor is one I really keep close in touch with because I do a lot of service work. And I tell you what, I would not be here if it was not for Alcoholics Anonymous. And now I have to tell you about the family afterward. I chose men over these children. I had 2 sons. And I just lost the youngest one 8 months ago yesterday. And it hurt down to the core of my heart. I had to call him. He was living in LA. And he came home the next day. He's been with me since. So he's helping me take care of the house. And, just being there for me. Plus, he's starting school, and he's going to be the first one to go to college. I never went. Like I said, I've been working my whole life. I had to because their fathers were not in my life. But we made it. Barely. I mean, when I was still drinking, I'd give the money to him, and he would get everything paid. And it was crazy when I had to switch it around. And then he left when I got sober because I messed up his drinking. So, the youngest, I knew he drank, but I didn't know how bad he was. He finally decided to go to treatment, and it was too late. He knew he had to go to detox. He went in on a Friday, and he got sent by ambulance to the hospital on that Sunday, and he never came out. But he had that tube down his throat, and I told him, I said, you have 11 days without alcohol. And he was like, and I said, yeah. And he kind of went like that. I think he passed with like 19 days or something. But he did it. But he left me a grandson that he made when he was 13. Yeah, and I didn't think you could do that, but you can. So the baby was born when he was 14. The father was in the Army. He had retired and they moved back home to Kentucky. So we got to keep the baby for the weekends. And then when he retired, they went back and the baby went back. So every Christmas, I had to pack him up, put him on the plane to go visit his baby and send all kinds of presents. We get a call when he was 6.5 years old, and they said, come get him. The mother didn't. And we thought we could just go up there and get him, but we couldn't. We had to go to court, fight for him. We finally get him, and he's like, I've been waiting on you. I was in jail, So we took him home, and he was raised by non-natives till he was 6. He went with me to the bank, and he called his buffalo a dinosaur. And I said, excuse him, he's my new grandson, and we had to teach him how to be Indian. Now, he lost his mother 4 years ago due to an overdose. So he saw her with the tubes in her throat and everything. She never came out of the hospital. So when his father was in that state, he couldn't do it. So he lost his mom and his dad, and he just now turned 19. And he's going to have a baby in November. He got married before he left, and they're with child. And he had his mother and dad's ashes at his wedding. My life is full of sadness, but, I'm still grateful for Alcoholics Anonymous because they pulled me through this. My service sponsor lost 2 wives, and he's on his 3rd one, and I'm like, man, I think I'd be scared to be married to you. But, he said, Caron, rely on the fellowship, and I did. There were some ladies that I barely knew. Man, they called me every day. They sent me things. They checked on me. That's what this fellowship's about. He had a dream the other day that his brother came to see him. And he told him he was proud of him. And he loved him. And while my son was on the tube, we held the phone up to him so he could make his amends. So, we're always thinking about that stuff with the steps. We got to work through it. I had a lot of extensive damages through that generational trauma, so I had to go to counseling, which I promised to do. And, I even had to go to a therapist for some other stuff that went along with all that. It just was too traumatic. What I was told was, you were traumatized by your parents that were traumatized. My father went to Korea. He said, I'll never tell you what I had to do. I can't speak about it. He was traumatized. My mother going to boarding schools her whole life, she said, I can't talk about it either. She said, but I can tell you that I learned some good traits. She could cook, she could sew. She made us our own little Barbie clothes. She sewed them with her own hands. Those things are little. But that's the type of what they did, what she learned. And after he had gone to the war, some of the women had to take jobs. She was working at a gas place in Ponca, being a map reader, because the ladies had to try to help out and do their part. But, like I say, I don't want to offend anybody, but my father always taught me, this really is a white man's world. We would love it to be all native the way it used to be, but we have to learn how to live in the white man's world. But we still have our own AA, our native AA. We have spirit winds. And, I still go. I used to be prejudiced, real prejudiced, and there was only one Indian man in my group. But he didn't want to hang out with Indians. He was what you call an apple. Didn't want to be around Indians. And I wasn't prejudiced just to other people. I was prejudiced to everybody. I had to hold hands with this one man they called Crazy Larry. He was a sniffer. He was a huffer. He huffed paint. So he had caked spray paint on him. And when I held his hands, it felt like you're holding hands with the fish. And I was sitting there, and I couldn't take it. I dropped that, and I grabbed those two hands, and I went over to someone else. And my sponsor got mad. She said, next time you go stand by him and you hold his hand. So I did. And he actually was a really intelligent man, but too much huffing got his brain. There was another man. He was a scientist, a real scientist. He was in the meeting. And he used to just talk. Ego. And he used to make everybody mad. And I was like, man, I don't want to be in that meeting where that man's in. And so she says, go sit by him and get to know him. I did. And he was actually a pretty decent man. But that's the only place he got to go to talk to anybody. So that's why he said all that. So I've learned a lot through the rooms. When I was about to get my first year, I forgot about my attorney stuff. I'm sorry. I went for my checkup. And when I got out of jail, the attorney says I was court ordered to, I'll tell you how they said it. We were there standing in front of the judge, and they said, Counselor, what about AA? And he goes, Your Honor, my client wants to go to AA once a day for a whole year. And he told me wear something blue and keep your head down. Don't say anything unless the judge asks you. And if he asks you, you say, yes, Your Honor, no, Your Honor. So I had my head down. He says, Miss Yellowfish, was that correct? Do you want to go to AA once a day for a whole year? And I'm like, yes, Your Honor. He said, Counselor, I only need her to go twice a week. He goes, no, Your Honor. She wants to go to AA once a day for a whole year. So I went to AA. Not only 365 meetings. I counted them one day. There was 537 that first year. That AA group was a very, very low group. Homeless people all the time. And they had like 6 meetings a day, and on the weekend, about 7. Sometimes I needed that. So, that's when I went to my checkup. I took all those papers, and they were like that thick. And I said, here's my papers. You want a copy of them? He goes, no, come here. I just want to look in your eyes. I didn't know what he was doing. So he gets right in front of my eyes. He says, yep, you're sober. Don't you want my papers? He goes, what'd you do? Go every day? You told me to. No, I didn't. I told you to go twice a week. I said, man, you wait till I hear from him. And I got to meet him running that halfway house. I got a bed for a lady and her kids. And I had to go down to this courthouse south of Lawton. And it doesn't have an elevator. And the DA's office was on the 3rd floor. And I had a broke foot. I said, I'll sit here. You go up there, sign out, do your ER bond, and I'll take you, go get your stuff and your kids, and we'll go. Well, he came down and he said he wants to see you. Oh my. So I had to climb up that steps and my face was all red. I was huffing and puffing. And it was him. The man who tricked me going to AA once a day for a whole year. And he was going like this to me. And did I go to him looking mean? I was going like this too. He said, Caron, I just wanted to give you a hug because you've done good. I see your name on my clients' papers all the time. I'm like, well, thank you. So to me, it's been all worth it. All I could do for them was just be that live example, sober. You know, they told me the things I did, and it was hideous. And I had to apologize for choosing people and men over them and not being there for them. They couldn't bring people home, just like it was when I was a kid. It was just like I made the same cycle. I created it. I was hoping that they would stop it. And I always wanted the hands of AA to be there. That youngest one had said, Mom, you drug me around AA when I was little. I know how it works. So, you know, I'm grateful that Dee's in the program. Everybody back home was afraid for him to come because he's notorious for skipping these. He'll ride with me to the conventions and he's gone. So everybody around was, where's Dee? Where's Dee? Everybody at home calling him, his friends from all the other places calling him, are you still there? But he's going to college now, and he took 16 hours, so he was in the room doing his homework. So we're grateful to be here, and I've really had a swell time, and I feel like I've got to meet a lot of new friends. I'll remember your faces. I can't remember your name because I'm old, 73, remember? But it was fun. I hope to see y'all at the next event, and it was an honor to be here, and well, thank y'all for staying here. I don't know if I'm the spiritual speaker or not for the Sundays that they always have, but I do whatever I'm asked to do. So I wish y'all a safe trip home. I want your families to be safe. I want it to be good when you go back home. That's all I got.